Welcome back, everyone, to the T.R.O.N podcast, The Randomness of Nothing. I have a very special guest today, a very accomplished author and person that actually is from my home state of Michigan, now in North Carolina, has written over 60 novels, and more importantly, is a martial artist like myself, Mr. Stuart Jaffe. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I got to tell you, first of all, thank you for reaching out to me. And, I love the fact that you reached out because there's a lot of things that I saw in your background that really synced up to what was really up my alley. So first, just give a quick background about yourself.
Sure. I'm Stuart Jaffe. I'm an author, best known for the Max Porter Paranormal Mysteries. I've written over 60 novels. I've been doing this for like 30 years. I was originally born in Jersey, but I lived in Michigan for several years, and I've lived all over the country. Now I'm in North Carolina. Like I said, I've been writing for about 30 years and continue to do this. Love it, and we'll keep doing it. What else can I tell you? I studied martial arts at Taekwondo for a long time.
Right.
Originally came up through the ranks in learning T.R.O.N Taekwondo, which is the traditional, actually meant for fighting techniques.
Yes, it is.
And then when I moved down here, really couldn't find a T.R.O.N school. There was one, but I just was not impressed. Mm-hmm. So I ended up doing what you find more in America, which is just for sport.
Right.
And I did that for many years. And we actually went and competed in Korea, and it was
That's amazing.
A really cool experience.
Yeah.
But then I had a knee injury, and my surgeon basically said, I said, can I get back to doing Taekwondo? And he said, sure, but I'll see you in 5 years to replace your entire knee. And that kind of stopped me.
Yeah, that's a bit of a humble pie. I had a microfracture surgery on my knee about 5 years ago. And so, you don't realize when the bone starts actually rubbing on the knee, and you're like, oh, it's only like less than a dime size. I'll tell you one thing, man, It felt like the Grand Canyon on your knee because that pain, and oh my gosh, it was ridiculous how painful it was. And knee injuries obviously are common because you're constantly exploding, making quick movements and things like that. And you find out real quick that age and wear and tear really takes a toll on you when it comes to that.
And some of them, like Taekwondo, you're familiar with this, I'm sure, is
sure.
called a hard martial art because it's very impact. Our blocks are actually attacks.
Yes.
As opposed to some of the more fluid. Yeah. I wanted to replace it with a softer fluid thing like Kung Fu.
Yeah.
But it's so much of that you have to get so low to the ground, and that requires bending your knees and I just, those days are behind me. I was a young man back then.
Yeah, it's tough to let it go. I have a black belt in Tong Sudo, so obviously we have, for lack of better terms, pretty much the same style that we've come from because they're just from the same tree. So I know I could go down the wormhole of martial arts all day with you, and I practice a couple other different styles, but it's always nice to have those conversations with people.
Oh, sure.
So Max Porter, first of all, how did you actually get into writing? What inspired you? And I saw that it's in Winston-Salem. It's about a 1940 where it's a ghost that took over. It's a ghost series. So can you get a little more detailed into that?
So I started writing. I'd always dabbled in writing, and I just love telling stories. And my undergrad degree is in theater and directing theater, and so I started writing plays, and that got me writing.
Nice.
And I would write short stories and things like that. But then coming out of, I guess I was right out of college, I just wanted to see if I could write a novel, and I knew from my previous writing experience that I could commit to writing at least one page in a day, minimum. That's not that hard. I could do that back then it would take me maybe an hour to do that. And that's just not that much. Now I could do a page in a few minutes, but back then I didn't know what I was doing. So I gave myself, I said, just, and maybe, sometimes that one page would take me 2 or 3 hours. I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
But I figured if I just did it once a day for a year, that would be 365 days. That seemed to me like the length of a novel, and maybe it would make sense and maybe it wouldn't. And so I did, and I completed that. And I mean, it was a horrible mess of a novel, but I did it. And once you've climbed that mountain, you realize, oh, I can do this. And now there are plenty of people who finish their novel and they're like, okay, I did it. I'm moving on to something else. I never want to do that again. Yeah. And then there are those of us who get bit by the bug and we're like, ooh, I could do it better now. Now I know. Right. Now I want to try this. Yeah. Now I want to try that. And so one thing led to another, and this is my career. As far as Max Porter goes, I'd been. We moved. My wife and I my son too. We moved down here to Winston-Salem. At the time, my wife was doing her master's at Wake Forest University. So I was looking for something, a new thing to write. And ended up spending a lot of time in the university library because I would go to wait from, I had to kill time while I was waiting for my wife
Exactly. Yeah.
to pick her up or whatever was going on. So one day I'm in the library and I don't really remember how I ended up in this particular section of the library or how it all came about, but I'm looking through this book on history of the area because I knew nothing about where I was living. So I was kind of curious. And I fell into this little nugget of information that started the whole thing, which was that I
Beautiful.
found out that during World War II, the U.S. soldiers were, these are a bunch of young guys. Cigarettes being mass produced was a relatively speaking a newer thing, or at least becoming more popular. And part of what made
Correct.
it so popular was they were easily transported. It's not like you had to
Exactly.
have a pipe and
Yep.
and all this stuff. You could just pick
And
one up and
and
throw
you're
it in
in
your
North
mouth.
Carolina too, which is Tobacco Road too.
Right,
Right.
right. So you have all these soldiers over in England waiting for D-Day, and even after, throughout the whole war, they're just smoking and smoking and smoking because they're freaking out. And the president comes to R.J. Reynolds and says to him, "Look, we need more cigarettes. We don't have enough." And he's like, "Well, I could move. I mean, my factories could go 24/7, but I just don't have the manpower." So the U.S. brought in German POWs, and we set up little mini German POW prison camps all throughout the state. There were like 20 some of them. Each one would only have like a dozen to 18, 19
Really?
POWs in it, and they would bust them into Winston-Salem at night, have them work through the night, and get them out before anybody woke up.
Wow.
And I knew, I think most people know something about World War II, and I'd read stuff about the
Of
actual
course.
battles and all this. Never heard anything about German POWs on U.S. soil.
Didn't hear about that. Didn't hear
And
about
I was
that.
like, "There's a story here," and that's kind of how it all began because essentially, well, so that was this historical thing, and I
Mhm.
started thinking, oh, I could put a mystery into that,
Nice.
and it's
Nice.
just the nature of my everything I write has always ended up getting either science fictiony or
Mhm.
fantasy driven. And so I wasn't that shocked when a ghost popped up. And so the whole series is about how this husband and wife move down to Winston-Salem
Mhm.
and they discover his office is haunted by this ghost of a 90s detective,
Beautiful.
and
Beautiful.
together they started a detective agency, a paranormal investigation agency. And I take real history. Every book in the series, there's like 19 now. Every
Yeah.
single one, I take real history of the area, of the whole,
That
a
is
huge
dope.
section of the state, what we call the triad.
Yeah.
And I mix it with witches and ghosts and curses and magic. And it's a
It's
lot
Woody Harrelson, True Detective, the first season. That was in like the Bayou, and it was so different because it was an area that hasn't been explored a lot on television and film, and so it was a different setting. So it immediately captivated you by its surroundings. So the fact that you have something based in North Carolina, in this area, automatically piques my interest. So you got 19 books. So what other historical things did you find out? I will. True Detective did a really good job of opening up like that bayou area where you get a chance to see something different, and the cinematography is part of the story, right? There's not, I'm not saying that cities down south or on certain coasts don't have large buildings, but there's a lot of historical references that sometimes don't get the attention that they deserve
of.
in media and in shows. So, how much did the background of the area, like in North Carolina, which doesn't get a lot of media play, really impact the storytelling?
Well, I'd say it's everything because, again, I'm taking real history of this area. So that one of the fun parts of writing the Max Porter books are that leading up to the actual writing of the book, I have to do research on these things. So I find a piece and then I can actually go to the place and
Nice,
see what
nice,
it is. And some of them are underwhelming and some of them are overwhelming.
for
I
sure.
once I there's one book here. I'll give you two examples from the opposite ends. There's a famous um, place called the Devil's Tramping Ground,
Oh wow.
and this is this. It used to be in the middle of the woods, but the world has grown around it. But it's this section in the woods where nothing grows. It's like
Mhm.
it looks almost like a perfect circle, and it's just like it's all dead. And supposedly, if you put like something out there, you come back in the morning, and that thing will have been thrown to the side. And the idea that the legend is that it's the devil walking around in circles
Yep.
as he tries to make up his evil plans.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
In reality, it's a salt lick, from thousands of years, and
For
so it's
sure.
all filled with salt, and nothing can grow because it's salty.
Nice, but still.
And so it's got this legend behind it. So I wanted to use this area. So I went and found it, and it's not hard to find because it's absolutely littered with beer cans and condoms and things because teenagers go there and party now.
Right.
So it's and it's one of those things where there's I think they changed the name of it, but there used to be the Devil's Tramping Ground Road, which went by it. And literally you can like see the road from the ground. Like it's not like you have to go in, walk an hour into the woods. It's like
Right. Just
30
right
seconds
over
there, if
For
even
sure.
that.
For sure.
It was just, and then I was there, and I'm like, okay, this is it.
Yeah, it
But
was somewhat insignificant. Right.
right, so it was not very exciting. However, by being there, I was able to take pictures of the area because I was using this for the big climax of one of the books, and so I was able to get a lay of the land, get a feel for, oh, this is over here, this is over here. Oh, I
Right.
would never have known that there's a tree stump in the middle of this thing, and I could use that,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So even an underwhelming one can be useful. But on the other end is a place called Kerner's Folly.
Okay.
This is a house in Kernersville, North Carolina, which is like,
I've heard of it.
yeah, it's like 30, 40 minutes east of Winston-Salem. And the house and the town are named after Mr. Kerner, who was the equivalent of an interior decorator now. And you can go to this house and get a tour, which I did, and it's a weird house. There's a very logical reason for it. But when you go in, it's weird it's almost like at times like being in an MC Escher drawing. Like nothing makes sense. Like there are stairs that just go into a wall, or there are no doors are the same, no trim is the same. There's I forget how many floors. There's a lot of floors to the house, and when you go up, there's a half floor. So there's floors 1 and 2, and then there's 3.5. Which I'm a short guy. I'm like 5'3", 5'4".
Okay.
And my head touching the ceiling of this.
Wow.
And then there's a huge ballroom that has these really freaky marionettes that are the whole of the family.
Got
and
it.
then in the attic is a replica of the house. So there's all there's weird things.
A replica of the house upstairs in the attic. That's crazy.
Right. So now it's all crazy. Now I will. So again, I get all these pictures of this stuff, and I'm able to use it for the book. That things I would never have known about.
Right.
All of it, however, when you know the history, actually it's very unexciting. It's simply that, again, he was an interior decorator and an interior designer, and so he used his house as a showroom.
Yep.
So all the different doors are models you could buy, and you could see what a door looks like. The staircase is I could build a staircase like this.
He was selling it as soon as people came and visited. Absolutely.
Right. Here's the different trims you could have. And then the half floor has nothing to do with selling. It's merely he wanted to build rooms for his children that they could function in, that weren't oversized because they're small and the world is big.
Absolutely.
The replica of the house is just a dollhouse of the house.
Yeah.
And he built it,
Gotcha.
Daughter.
Right.
And then the other cool thing about that house, by the way, is that the attic was converted into a theater, like a stage.
Nice.
And they put plays on there for the locals and all that.
That's awesome.
It is the first private small theater in the United States that was ever built.
And see, those are the things that you don't hear about, right? Until you actually research and visit and look things up and actually,
right.
There's a beauty in being a person that actually visits a place like that actually exists, because you're not going to know that information. Wikipedia is a great tool, but there's no substitute for this being down around the corner from where you live.
Sure.
Right.
And again, you get all these textures that you can use in your book, the smells and sounds of the
Right.
room.
Right.
And especially a house like that, there's you come into the. It's been many years since I've been there. I think you come up the stairs into the attic, and then behind the stage, there's like not secret, but it's kind of like a hidden staircase, very narrow. Like it was clearly not built there originally to
Right.
go back down because they had to fit a whole theater in there, so they put the dressing rooms downstairs.
Right.
They had a
Nice.
little
Nice. Yeah.
backstage
So that was the entire encompassing
access.
entire location the
Well,
entire time.
that's something I'm going to use. Because it's narrow and
That's
freaky. And
very, very interesting. I wish I could get visit a place like that. I could lose my mind in a place like that.
did I get locked out again? I think we're back.
Okay, we're good. Yeah, and so you know, just in my mind right now, what I'm picturing out is like you got these plays and you got a replica of this house. And I haven't read your books yet, but in my mind, I'm picturing like a murder at a play or a murder in a house that has those steps like that, or some sort of,
Absolutely something that's happened.
right, something took.
With that house, I've completely forgot about this because this is like the second or third book that uses this location. The day I went there to look at it, they had just that week, they had just been officially the North Carolina Paranormal Society had officially said that that attic was haunted.
Right, right, right. Yeah,
So you'll have to read the book because I don't even remember what the whole haunting deal was, but I used it, and so yeah, there's a ghost bed in that attic, and so I use that as a major part of the story.
it's beautiful. Yeah, and like I said, my mind just started spinning as soon as I could see myself walking through that. Right, like it's almost like that Jennifer Lopez movie from like 2000, like The Cell. Right, when she was like in the mind of Vincent D'Onofrio's character, and you're like, this movie wasn't necessarily great, but I've never seen anything like that done before. Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Strange murders are a great thing. Strange crimes.
Yeah.
One of the books deals with. There was a right after the end of the Civil War.
Mm.
There was a train full of gold that was going from one part of North Carolina to another. That was being shipped to be transported for the army or whatever.
Right.
And the train never arrived, and
Nope.
they eventually found it, but it was empty. There's still people to this day who will take metal detectors and go up and down that section of the line looking for lost trinkets of gold that may have gotten stolen.
For
But
sure.
nobody knows what happened to it all. Like it's never been found
That's
ever.
insane. I mean, you don't
So
know.
anything like that kind of
Right.
history. Where, oh yeah, this has happened, but here's this gap where we don't know what happened.
Oh,
That's the perfect thing I can find because then I can fill in that gap with whatever
with
I
your own
want.
imagination. The crazy part is people sometimes have to think relatively. Like we're a country of what 325 million people, but like a large swath of this country doesn't have people who live in it. Right? It's a huge, like it's a massive country. Right? So people are like, oh, I live in a crowded city. I don't live in a crowded city. Whether you do, whether you don't. Well, like 80% of the population does not live in an urban congested area. So there's a large portion of this country that if you take a train or take a bus, you're going to fields and fields and fields. And in those fields and in those mountains and in those hills are stories that just don't get told. And then it gets passed down locally. And someone like yourself can suddenly say, you know what, I think I can use my mysterious and mischievous mind to really plug some holes in here and use the historical reference with my own imagination and get something really beautiful come together. And that's wonderful.
Yeah, wherever you live, whoever's listening to this, wherever you live, there are endless stories. I have fans who be like, are they ever going to do anything outside of North Carolina? And I'm like, there's too many stories already here. I don't need to go anywhere else.
Right. So this is a separate question, kind of still up the alley of writing though. How does AI impact writing now? Like, I mean, obviously you did it the traditional way. Now there's artificial intelligence. What's the difference and how is that transition in your writing career, if at all?
Well, it doesn't affect me, and I don't use it, and I strongly urge anybody who wants to be a writer not to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of like AI music. AI being used as a creation of art is pointless and stupid because art and entertainment is part of art. Art exists because it is the act of human beings talking to other human beings about what it means to be a human being. That's what
Right.
we're doing.
Right.
That's why stories,
Get
whether
told.
it's a story told through music or through a play or a movie or a book
Right.
or a painting or sculpture, whatever art form you have, that's what we're doing. Even if it's John Wick, something that's really just there for action.
Right.
It's there to say to you, well, you're a human being. Here's what a human being in this situation, this crazy situation you'll never be in.
Right.
But now you put yourself in those shoes. You can vicariously think about it, and you'd be surprised. I write fantasy and science fiction, and one of my first series was a post-apocalyptic fantasy where magic caused the apocalypse. I always describe it as Xena meets Mad Max, pure,
Nice.
just violent, action-packed adventure.
Right.
And I had a lady come up to me shortly after the third book. It's a 6-book series, but there was like 3 books into it. And she comes up to me. I'm selling my books at a convention, and she says, "I want to thank you for writing this." I'm like, "Great, that's nice." You go past. She goes, "No, it helped me so much." And I'm thinking, "This helped you? How could this?"
This is on the deep end, right? You know what I mean?
She said, this last year I was a really, really hard time in my life, and there was really hard to sometimes just to get out of bed and get going, but whenever I thought about this book, the main character of the book, her name is Malja, and she would say Malja's life was so much worse than mine, and she was able to still go do
For sure.
and keep fighting. So that gave me
beautiful.
strength to
That's
do
wonderful.
it. So I mean, yeah, and that's a nice big ego boost. But for the point of this is that's what I mean. Is even when you think what you're writing is just entertainment, it still has the power to move people and change them because it's humans talking to humans about being humans.
And you couldn't have that connection if you just let an AI chat box create that for you.
No,
no, not at all.
I will come up with a good approximation, but it is not designed to do this, and we're asking it to do it. It's mimicry, right? Let alone, I mean, there's the moral aspect that AI in writing has stolen all of our published novels, so it's stolen my work, and I never got paid for it, and they trained it on that, and Facebook is stealing everybody. The published works, but all of your posts, everything you've ever written is going into Facebook to help train their models. And they're all, I mean, the Pandora's box is open, the genie's out of the bottle. None of us are ever going to get that back.
Right.
But here's the thing to understand about AI and why if you do it, I don't even know why you would want it. I don't understand. If you want to create something, create it. If you don't, then why?
So can it be used as an editing tool then? If you said, okay, I would like to clarify this sentence.
So absolutely, AI is a great tool. For example, one of the ways we've been using AI forever is spell check. That's AI, folks. Basic one, but it's an AI. Same with grammar check. Sure, absolutely. That's a tool. It's not doing the creative, artistic, expressive part for you. It's helping you do that.
Right.
And that's different than what people are using it for. And the problem with using it is that this was an experiment done early on, and I've always thought this was a really good, or I don't know if it was an actual experiment done, but it was a explanation that puts into clarity why AI will never actually be good at art. If you take an AI like a Chat GBT, cut it off from all learning and just fed it Shakespeare. So that's the only thing it knows is Shakespeare. And then you say, write me a sonnet about whatever, in the style of Shakespeare. It will do that. And it will give you a sonnet, and the sonnet will be okay.
Right.
Because what it does is it creates an average, a median. And so it will only ever be able to create an average Shakespearean sonnet. It could never, ever, ever create something great or something really terrible. Because if it does that...
Medium. It goes to the medium.
Right. Because if it accidentally creates something great, it will cut that out and say, that doesn't fit the median. That's an outlier. And outliers are what we crave. There's all kinds of mediocre crap on streaming services or in the movie theaters, and we go and we're like, yeah, that was okay. But it doesn't really do anything for us because it really wasn't that good.
It's almost like cooking, right? So like, your mother, grandmother, wife would know exactly the right spices on, to the T. Even though the cookbook may say a certain, this is exactly what you need to do. It's like, well, yeah, you can cookbook it, but I like it a little bit more like this. You got to add the hot sauce. You got to add, herbs and spice and things like that. And that's where a real human interaction experience comes in. Those personal touch feelings that come in with, like, that way, it tasted good, or that it hit your taste bud.
Human beings, as far as audiences of things, we are terrible at knowing what we're going to like. We're great once it happens. We're like, ooh, I like that, but we would never pick that. There's so many examples in film, like the Barbie movie. Other than people who love Barbie, and even people who love Barbie would be like, how are you going to make that into a movie?
It was very funny because I thought the same thing. It was very funny because I was like, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just off the top of my head of something more recent, but it goes back, you can go back. What is often considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest movie ever made, is Citizen Kane. And when that thing it was breaking all the rules of how you make a movie. So nobody do well. Same with Star Wars. Even George Lucas was like, I ruined my career.
But, because it's after American Graffiti, right? So yeah.
So nobody knows. Nobody, including the artist, often knows whether what they've created or the artwork, how it's going to connect. And an AI can never do that. It can never take that chance. It will reject that creation and say that's not what I'm being asked to make, and it'll make something lesser than that.
Got it.
So that's one of many reasons I hate AI. As far as creating art,
right.
I think AI is going to be a fantastic tool, or whether it's like I use it, like you said, like we were talking about for spell check and grammar and things like that to speed up processes,
sentence continuity, things like that.
Sure.
Right.
Other parts of life, a self-driving car has got to be using some forms of AI. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of things like that once we get those things better and better perfected, they will be really useful. Whether we like it or not, AI will eventually be able to write or create a video or music in such a way that it's impossible to tell the difference. It's getting there. I mean, there are times when it is hard to tell the difference now.
Questionably, without doubt.
I ultimately, because obviously I've been on this conversation about AI many times.
Yeah. That's why I asked. I've never had your perspective.
That's fine. No, I don't mean that as a criticism. I just mean it helps. That's why it's not like I'm just ripping off the top of my head. I've had this debate with people, and in my opinion, when AI gets to the point that, let's say, it replaces me as a writer, like nobody, and you just don't need a person anymore. You're only getting the average, but for whatever reason, people are like fine with that. That's all I need for my reading entertainment. Then writing will break. Well, art will just break off into doing something else.
Of course it will.
You're not going to stop what art is. Remember that definition I said: people writing for people, about people, or creating art for people. So I use the idea of chainsaw sculptures. Somebody takes a chainsaw and makes some sculpture out of wood live.
Right.
That is something a computer can't do.
Right.
We're paying to watch a human being do that.
Right. That is very true. That is very true. It
might become the greatest art form in the world because that's something unique to a human being. Same with like stand-up comedy right now. I can't imagine
the authentic experience.
Yeah, I can't imagine paying, and I'm sure you could get a robot to stand up there and tell jokes, but
no substitute.
Not going to be interesting. So there's going to be art forms that AI displaces me or illustrators or musicians in some way.
The personal touches.
But the ones who want to continue like making music, it'll be live performances that and I think just human beings will go find some other thing. Right. If we can express ourselves to each other through writing, we'll find something else to do it. And, whether that's chainsaw sculptures or something I've never even thought of.
Right. Will happen. Well, it's funny you mentioned John Wick before, right? Because the reason why John Wick was so successful because people got tired of special effects fight scenes. They got tired of green screens. They got tired of, the actor who couldn't really perform the stunt, or you could clearly see that it wasn't them, or the quick cuts and things like that. And then you saw this movie, and anybody who's seen the old Hong Kong and Japanese movies, this is not new, right? So John Wick didn't create this. But as far as American mainstream films, this was the first time in a long time where you're like, hey, wait a minute. The actor knows the scene. The actor can fight. The director is a former stunt coordinator and stunt double and martial artist, and all the people on screen are actually performing actual martial arts. And it's authentic, and you're like, it mattered to a fan who watched action films and watched fight choreography. That mattered. We've all seen Van Damme, we've all seen Scott Adkins, we've all seen Wesley Snipes, but this was the mainstream movie of the guy who did The Matrix that's fighting in his kitchen with knives and guns, and you're like, there's no computer that can substitute that experience. Nothing.
And and like you said, they took one of the big things they took from the old school Hong Kong films is not just once you have somebody who can do these things, you then show them happening. You don't cut it. They're the punches, the flips, the shoot, the gunshots, all of that was, you got to experience
authentic. Yeah. And then he actually reloads, right? He's the small
absolutely.
Right, the small things, like he's reloading, right? And you're like, okay, this, and then you're like, where's more of this coming from? So, obviously you've written a lot of novels. You're very successful in your field. I got to ask this. Is this a TV show? Has anything been made into shows, movies, TV movies?
Not yet. This thing, Max Porter, going back, I think it was 2017, 2018, I signed a contract with a producer, and he spent 2 years giving me money so he could go try and make it into a TV show or a movie.
Yeah.
Getting anything actually made is really, really, really hard.
I can only imagine.
I know some authors, some bigger name authors that have made a killing on year after year, letting their things get optioned, and they've never been made. And in fact, one author once said to me, I kind of don't want it ever to get made because this is guaranteed money, and if it gets made, I'm only going to get a big payout if it does well.
Right, like the writer of Forrest Gump, right? Who didn't make a dime.
Yeah, and sometimes you get screwed out of it too.
Right.
So this wasn't a huge amount, but I got paid several grand a year for a couple of years while they tried. But it was a fascinating window into just how hard it is to make, and because there were a lot of recognizable names that got at one time or another attached to the project, and we pitched. We got interest from this studio or that studio, and then it would go through a process, and then it would not happen, and then and eventually they're like, well, we tried for 2 years, but we got to move on to some other project and find something that works.
Of course, no doubt. That's awesome though.
So these things do happen, and hopefully someday I'd love to see some of this made, but at the moment there's nothing.
Well, I guess if there's a plus sign to that, is that because there's so many streaming services out there and availability that it's grown exponentially, maybe those opportunities open up because there's dozens of them right there, and they're always looking for content now.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And you have a very good fan base. So I'm pumped that you reached out to me. I could talk, sci-fi mysteries and martial arts and go down the wormhole forever, but I value your time so much. I'd love to have a follow-up with you. And I look forward to also getting a copy of the book as well, too, and a book of some of the series of the books as well, too. Where can people find Stuart Jaffe?
This will shock you, but stuartjaffe.com. Everything, links to everything. My stuff is available on Amazon and Apple, everywhere.
Right.
It's in ebook, print, hardcover, or paperback, hardcover, and almost, I'd say 99% of my stuff is on audiobook as well. Eventually it will all. So however you like to read a story, I'm trying to get it to you. And yeah. And for you particularly, I know we've been talking Max Porter because that's my best-selling stuff, but you would love my Nathan K series, because my pitch for that usually when I'm hand selling is it's John Wick with immortality.
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm gonna Nathan K, K-A-Y.
Just the letter K.
That's all you had to tell me. That's all you had to tell me, because I it's funny because the director of John Wick's doing Highlander, right? So you're like, this is, how could you beat that? You have my attention. I'm going to make a note to myself about Nathan K. Make sure I look that right up, because again, as soon as you said science fiction, martial arts, and mysteries, it's like, yeah, me and him are going to have a very great conversation. And I really appreciate your time for that. And like I said, I hope you continue success. And I'm very honored that you carved out some time for my podcast.
Oh, well, thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate you. You have a wonderful day.
You too.
That was a lot of fun, Mr. Stuart Jaffe.